What starts as a hostage call from a deranged streamer spirals into the unraveling of a trafficking empire hidden beneath the streets of Los Suenos. One SWAT raid. That's all it took to expose a crumbling tech giant and a network of predators so entrenched in the city's infrastructure, you start to wonder if anyone was ever really in control. This isn't just a mission arc. It's a descent into systemic rot, corporate silence, and the kind of evil that doesn't wear a mask, because it's been hiding in plain sight the whole time. In this video, we'll be breaking down every mission in the Spider Network arc. If you want a deeper dive into any specific mission covered today, check the description for links to my prior videos breaking them down in a more extensive manner. Because once you see how deep the conspiracy goes, you won't be able to unsee it. Michael Williams, an open house streamer known online as Milky Toes, is reported to have murdered his mother and taken his younger brother hostage. On paper, it looks like a domestic crisis. In reality, it's the entry point into something much darker. Michael is a volatile, drug-abusing, attention-starved streamer with a documented history of sexual misconduct. Obsessed with anime, hentai, and streaming clout, he's built a DIY server farm in his apartment, rigged straight into the complex's power grid, where he conducts his more, shall we say, illicit activities. The operation begins as a standard hostage rescue, but D Platoon quickly uncovers a ramshackled server farm, a hacked MindJot client, and a cache of predatory content. Michael wasn't just a creeper on the internet. He was actively distributing illegal images through a private MindJot network, and deeply involved in a crypto scam that funneled money through shady promotional deals. What's also perhaps most shocking about the whole raid is that his mother isn't even dead. She's alive in a neighboring apartment, passing him food through a shared vent. So this basically confirms that this wasn't a planned bust. This then leads to the question, why was it reported that he did so in the first place? Well, it's because this mission happened on accident. One of Michael's viewers swatted him as a joke, and it just so happens that the police stumbled onto a digital house of horrors. The resulting fallout leads directly to the MindJot raid, and from there to the unraveling of a sprawling predator network buried deep in Los Suenos. This mission is the first domino to fall. Michael is a nobody, but through him, the city's darkest secrets start spilling out. It's like the butterfly effect filtered through a Black Mirror episode. One loser streamer sets off a chain reaction that changes everything. After this unexpected bust, investigators traced the source of the illicit material found on his servers to the failing tech company, MindJot. Once a respected cornerstone of Los Suenos' digital infrastructure, MindJot has since rotted into a hub of criminal activity, trafficking, black market dealings, and exploitation, all hidden behind firewalls and corporate silence. Inside one of MindJot's last active data centers, the facility is barely operational. Evidence of financial ruin is everywhere. Abandoned servers, dirty corridors, and desperate attempts to liquidate hardware by replacing high-end systems with cheap, unstable Chinese knockoffs. Staff morale is at rock bottom, and internal emails show how many employees know the company is circling the drain. The building is staffed by private security mercenaries armed to the teeth and trained to shoot first and ask questions later. After dealing with multiple altercations of criminals posing as police officers, MindJot's security policy when dealing with law enforcement has shifted to a shoot-on-site response, making this raid highly volatile. After D Platoon clears out the data center, officers uncover a high-density storage unit marked AV, suggesting MindJot was safeguarding sensitive data for likely powerful people. Notes also reveal a Zulu server indicating even more buried content, along with panic protocols to divert traffic to China and initiate full server wipes. Among the more chilling finds is a ransom note. Somebody kidnapped an employee and demanded specific data drives in exchange for his life. Whoever these people are, they're not random criminals. They know exactly what's stored in these servers, and they're willing to kill to keep it hidden. What began as a follow-up to a creep getting swatted has now evolved into the unmasking of an entire digital crime syndicate. MindJot is finished, and its collapse will ripple through Los Suenos, but its fall raises bigger questions. Who was using MindJot's servers? What were they hiding, and how far up the chain does this go? 1 week later, decrypted metadata from MindJot drives has led the LSPD to a man named George Brixley, the owner of Brixley Talentime, a fraudulent talent agency operating out of a repurposed safe injection clinic. Brixley is a convicted sex offender and former Army Signal Corps officer, now suspected of involvement in a child exploitation network uncovered during the MindJot data center operation. Brixley Talentime is located in the Row, one of the roughest neighborhoods in Los Suenos, which is saying a lot. Streets are buried in trash, walls are lined with graffiti, makeshift shelters dot the corners, and there is a constant police presence patrolling the roads. At the center of this urban decay stands Brixley's operation. Again, outwardly a place for aspiring young actors, but internally something far more sinister. Inside, Deep Platoon discovers a building littered with children's toys, worn clothing, and disturbing posters lining the walls. A back room ominously named the Smile Room serves as Brixley's photography studio, where he takes staged photos of children to send to his clients. Here is where we can also find a chat log confirming communication between Brixley and this user known as AV. Exploring this area further, surveillance equipment and voice recordings paint a fuller picture of Brixley as manipulative, delusional, and obsessed with an old home movie he made as a child, which he now forces auditioning kids to reenact. Additional evidence deepens the implications as a cryptic letter can be found in a dumpster that features wax seals and keywords referencing other missions and figures, suggesting that Brixley is just a piece of a far-reaching coordinated system of abuse and trafficking. Combined with Brixley's military communications background, it's likely he was responsible for establishing the secure infrastructure needed to move illicit material and maintain contact with clients, both domestic and international. So as you can see, each subsequent mission in this Predator ring isn't just a typical takedown. It's really a window into a broader institutionalized horror. Brixley's operation thrives on the desperation of the poor, preying on vulnerable families by promising stardom or financial relief in exchange for access to their children. Whether through deception or outright purchase, Brixley facilitates the trafficking of minors under the guise of opportunity. And while this mission ends with his apprehension or death, the connections to MindJot, this AV figure, and potential foreign actors suggest that the true scale of the conspiracy has yet to be uncovered. Following the trail of digital evidence from the MindJot data center and the takedown of George Brixley, LSPD cybercrime zeroes in on the man on top of the distribution chain, AV, otherwise known as Amos Vo, a wealthy adult film director, producer, and self-proclaimed philanthropist. On the day of his daughter Janie's 18th birthday, a joint Romanian-American operation triggers a sudden raid on his mansion in the upscale neighborhood of Los Clemente. The urgency stems from Romanian authorities preparing to seize Vo's overseas assets by morning, risking destruction of vital evidence. Deep Platoon is then deployed to execute a warrant and uncover what they can. Throughout the house, Deep Platoon encounters members of Bolton Security, a private security force previously linked to Brixley and now protecting Vo. They're ex-military and ex-police, and while their exact role in the trafficking network remains vague, their loyalty and reach are clearly suspect. As Deep Platoon moves deeper, the mansion's darkest secrets begin to unfold. Inside the, shall we say, performance room, where Amos and Daniela film their content, a CD can be found labeled Spider Girls, prominently marked with a spider insignia. This symbol is very crucial to the narrative and appears to be the logo representing a shadowy, decentralized trafficking network operating both locally and internationally. More on this later, but this is our first hint that Amos Vo wasn't just running his own independent ring. He may have been a producer or distributor within the larger Spider organization. As Deep Platoon moves into the basement, behind locked gates and surveillance equipment lies a chamber of horrors. Hopscotch drawn in chalk leads to a room staged to resemble a child's bedroom, complete with toys, a bed, and candy. Nearby crates of children's clothing and folders labeled with names and ages are scattered throughout. And perhaps the most damning discovery is a dark room where photos of children were developed, and a trail of images leads to a twisted shrine, bearing phrases like daddy's good little princess, soft, pure, and untouched. With no evidence of children in the vicinity, nearby barrels partially buried in the floor could suggest the horrifying possibility that these children were not only exploited, but ultimately killed and disposed of on site. After the raid is completed, officers discover an odd painting gifted to Vo by an unknown sender with a note signed only with a G, with an accompanying note saying things like, "You provide me and my associates such delight, and you have our admiration for sharing this across the globe in a digital fashion. I hope we can treat you handsomely at the next banquet, with a selection from our private reserve." This to me basically confirms that Vo is just a middleman in a much larger, untouchable network. After this raid, the Los Suenos Police Department begins intensifying efforts against trafficking, and Caesar's car dealership in North Hills becomes the focal point of a high-risk operation. The dealership, run by Roberto Rodriguez, a seemingly respectable businessman, and his cousin Miguel Ramirez, a convicted felon with suspected cartel ties, was believed to be a weapons exchange point. Two undercover agents, Brian Greer and Mike Esperanza, were inserted into the operation to gather intel. Their covers were blown, leading to a firefight that left several officers wounded or dead. Greer was executed on site, with Esperanza surviving, with the operation as a whole being left in disaster. As D Platoon conducts their raid, they discover multiple trucks coming from Los Suenos' Port Hoken, several of which are branded with the unmistakable spider logo. Inside, the dealership is falling apart. Evidence of laundering and criminal cover-ups is rampant, and shredded documents litter a locked office floor, many of which contain coded references to female trafficking victims, using car model names like Aurora, Venus, or Celestine, suggesting that car sales were used to disguise human cargo transfers. A coded map can also be discovered that overlays perfectly with prior mission locations, with a large spider logo sitting ominously over Port Hoken. The body of Agent Greer can be found in a conference room, along with a whiteboard outlining trafficking logistics. The board lists guns, meth, coke, and trafficked women, totaling a projected of $19 million in illicit revenue. This basically confirms Caesar's car dealership functions as a logistics and distribution arm of the spider network, likely helping move product, human or otherwise, inland and laundering profits through fraudulent car sales. Emails and complaint forms imply they're giving away defective vehicles to maintain the appearance of a legitimate business, possibly laundering large sums via fake customer transactions. What's most notable is how this mission exposes the spider's growing reach and changing tactics. The LSPD likely walked into a hornet's nest thinking it was just a weapons bust, unaware of the deeper trafficking network underneath. It is possible that the crew operating out of Caesar's may have overstepped, either as a rogue element trying to expand into arms trade or as part of a failed spider diversification effort. Regardless, all signs now point toward Port Hoken as the epicenter of the spider's internal operations. After months of following the trail of the spider, the LSPD has finally tracked a major illegal shipment of weapons moving through Port Hoken. This site has acted as a critical hub for contraband flowing from South America to Canada. This operation is part of a larger crackdown led by a joint task force, including the LSPD and the Federal Investigation and Security Agency. The primary target is an unknown individual referred to as Marin, who commands a heavily armed entourage who appear to operate under the guise of legitimate port workers. Upon arriving at Port Hoken, D Platoon is met with a vicious storm as, during this operation, the Category 5 Hurricane Antonio is making landfall. As D Platoon moves through the port, they can find various spider-branded shipping crates, presumed to contain illegal arms. However, a unique and disturbing moment occurs when the team uncovers shipping containers housing trafficked women, some of whom are linked to photographs found during the Caesar's raid. Here, FISA orders D Platoon element leader Judge to lock the container and proceed, prioritizing operational security. Judge then becomes visibly resistant to the order, potentially hinting at deeper personal trauma or ethical conflicts with FISA, or this agent in particular.
Got it back. Secured. Zipped up.
Talk. We have a container full of women. We need Thames down here right now.
Copy that. Entry team. EMTs and trailers are...
This is FISA.
Stand down and shut that door, entry team. We're sending a unit to secure the container and its contents.
What? We're not leaving them like this.
Close the doors. Unless you want to interfere with a federal investigation, I suggest you shut the door and lock it behind you. Do your job and proceed with your mission. Understood?
Understood. Put the other guy back on. We'll talk later.
No, we won't be. FISA out.
Further exploration leads to the discovery of an auction room. This site is heavily fortified with mannequins, barbed wire, and spider logos where masked bidders participate in trafficking auctions. Inside, evidence includes disturbing paraphernalia, such as gimp masks, a literal spider made out of mannequins, and a flog named the Hose. Despite the mission's tactical success in dismantling this particular hub, the spider organization remains a powerful and far-reaching threat, controlling vast smuggling routes and trafficking operations along the entire west coast of North and South America. This raid likely disrupted only one of several such hubs, leading to the threat of the spider still being open-ended. So this entire arc functions as a critique of how predators survive by hiding inside failed systems, corporate, legal, or technological. It's not that no one knew, it's that no one looked. Or worse, that people did look and decided it was more profitable to look the other way. And the spider logo is more than just branding. It's symbolism. Each mission is basically a leg connected to a body we never fully see. It mirrors real-world trafficking networks, decentralized, anonymized, and horrifyingly efficient. It's the perfect villain because it can't be killed in one raid or one arrest. In these missions, we're not just fighting creeps, we're fighting logistics, exploitation, and institutional decay. But what happens when a system rots from the inside? This arc shows us the greatest evil doesn't come from cartoonish villains twirling mustaches. It comes from systems that were supposed to protect people, slowly turning into engines of harm. A tech company, a talent agency, a car dealership, a shipping port. None of them started as nests for human trafficking. But when oversight vanishes, when profit becomes the only goal, and when desperation meets apathy, predators find their way in. Systemic rot doesn't look like a monster. It looks like a job no one double checks. An executive that cuts corners, a DA who won't push charges because the guy's connected. It's the mayor looking the other way because crime stats are low on paper. And it's the frontline officer walking into hell with no backup because bureaucracy couldn't keep up. And this brings us to the trauma. This isn't just a tactical challenge, it's kind of like a psychological war. Imagine being in D Platoon's position. You're trained to shoot, to clear, to protect. But what do you do when you breach a room and find children's clothes stuffed into barrels? What do you do when your mission protocols tells you to lock the containers and move on as you hear muffled cries coming from inside? You follow orders, you secure the area, but something inside of you breaks. This arc doesn't just show the evil in the world, it shows the cost of confronting it. This isn't an action movie fantasy, it's quiet, gnawing horror. It's trauma without closure, and every time D Platoon clears another room, they don't just take out targets, they're collecting scars. Because in a system this broken, there's no catharsis, no clean wins, just layers of human wreckage hidden under fake smiles and corporate logos. And you, the player, the operator, are expected to keep pushing forward. Kick the door, clear the room, find the evidence, and move on. But you don't move on. Not really. Not when the victims are real, not when the signs were there all along, and not when you know that, for every spider you crush, 10 more skitter back into the walls.